Yeah, I didn't know you guys can afford a nice phone like that.
Hey, put that down.
All right, who's first? Unless you want a filibuster to begin with.
What do you got?
Nothing. Go ahead.
So why Philly? Why decided to come here?
Well, it was exactly 40 years ago when I started my pro coaching career across the street at Veterans Stadium. And thought it'd be cool to hopefully end it here. So 40 years later, here I am. And a lot of things change and a lot of things don't, you know. One of the first things I've done several times, still go to the Palladium down on Packer for my meals, just like I did way back then. And Phillies are still playing good. Okay. Although you guys didn't clobber them for losing one game yesterday, did you?
We don't cover that.
Oh. Well, but no, just to come back, my kids live 2 hours south of here. My mother lives, who's 97, 2 hours north of here. So a lot of family considerations. Philly, I was a big Philly fan growing up in all sports. So it was a thrill for me to go to work every day at Veterans Stadium 40 years ago, because I used to go to games there all the time. And now it's a good thrill to come back 40 years later and hopefully finish it out here.
So you expect this to be your last stop?
I would think so, but as we all know in this business, nothing's guaranteed.
Is this your expectation to come back here when you left Miami? Did you kind of see this as an opportunity, and is that why you left Miami, to come here?
Basically, yes.
So 38 years ago, when you were here a couple years ago, what were your responsibilities when you were a consultant?
Oh, in 22?
Yeah.
I wasn't here that often. I really helped the offense. I'd say 95% of any of my contributions were to the offense and 5% to the defense. That's basically what I was doing, educating, trying to give the offensive coaches a pre-look at the defense they're going against, what could possibly hurt them, what's their strengths, what's their weaknesses, schematically where they can be attacked maybe and not attacked, all that different kind of stuff. But it wasn't every week.
Would you have been here if the timeline of defensive coordinator openings was different last year?
I think that's a fair assumption.
We've heard a lot of people talk about your defense, but from your perspective, what are the most important elements of it?
Good players. And I'm not trying to be a wise guy with that, but, we have a system that is versatile, we like to think, that, it needs to be versatile because every week you're facing different strengths of an offense, different schemes. So what you play in one week 10, 15 times, you may not play it all the next week. So you have to have a versatile system for the offenses today in the NFL. And what we'll eventually do is learn what our guys are best at. So I like to throw a lot at them early, because I think one of the worst things you can do is come week 3, week 5, man, we could really use this scheme, but it hadn't been introduced to the players yet. Whereas if you introduced it to them in training camp and worked on it, when you pull it back out 3-4 weeks later, there's recall. So we'll throw a lot at them in training camp to see what best fits for them, what they're good at, and then try and whittle it down. But always keeping some stuff in the bank in case we need it at some point during the season.
Along those lines,
Whoa, Bob, you got a referee here.
We'll do DJ and then Mark.
We've seen a lot of defenses across the league adopt aspects of your scheme. You hear a lot about the Fangio scheme. Does it present challenges as more defenses kind of try to emulate what you do? Like, how do you handle that?
Yes and no. Yes, in that you see the way some teams may want to try and attack it, but no in the sense that it's not as different as it was when we first started doing it and built it. So it's yes and no.
So along the lines of getting good players and everything, like how much of an influence or a factor were you in the players, they acquired during the offseason, whether it was like the free agent guys, the guys they drafted, Quignon and Cooper, stuff like that?
Yeah, Howie asked me to watch several players. I gave him my opinion, and then he took it from there.
When it comes to versatile players, like Cooper, a lot of people projected him at different spots around the league. What's your philosophy as far as how you start guys out like that who may have multiplicity over different positions?
Yeah, there's a lot of players that physically are capable of being versatile. Where a lot of them get eliminated from being versatile is they struggle to learn the assignments and the techniques and the execution at a couple different positions. So there's a lot of guys that are versatile physically but can't do it mentally. And I don't mean that they're not going to get, your reps are watered down the more you're moving around. And other guys are easier, it comes easier for them than others, if that makes sense to you. And what was the second part?
Just the fact of how you start those types of players out. If you see
Yeah, you start them out at a primary position, and then you start giving them the secondary position and go from there.
Hey, Vic, after you left Miami, it was suggested that you didn't get along with some of the players, that there were relationship strains. What was your perspective? What was the reality of it from your?
Yeah, I didn't see that at all, really. Anything we do, whether they're here or anywhere else I've been, is what we think's the best for the team and best for the defense specifically to stop somebody. And wherever that falls, that's where it falls.
Follow up on that, how have players changed since that day, those day 40 years ago across the street? How are they different now than they were?
That's a good question, and we can stay here all day and answer that, but I'm going to give you the Cliff Note version of that. They really haven't changed very much at all. What's changed is the people around them. People are not expecting as much out of players as we used to expect. And these players will work and give you everything they got within reason. And there's too much of, and that starts at an early age, when they're in high school, college, everybody, less is more type thing. They preserve your energy. You guys hear it in the NBA and load management, and I talk to coaches from other sports that I know, and, it drives them crazy. But the players are willing to work. Never had an issue with that. And they're still willing to work. But we, as the so-called adults in the room, need to push them.
So how have you adapted to?
And linebackers specifically, how do you see the personnel here matching what you want to do?
Well, when you say linebacker, I think inside linebackers. Okay. I think they're off to a good start. We've got Bond here who's played a little bit of inside linebacker in New Orleans. He really didn't play a whole lot of defense there, but he was inside some, more outside. We think he can play inside, and I have not seen anything so far that says otherwise. Obviously, we got Devin here from Tampa. You guys are well aware of him. He had a great career going, had a down year last year for whatever reason. We hope to get him back to where he was. N'Kobe's on the mend from his injuries last year. Who am I forgetting here? Keep going. Yeah, Trotter's got to come in and join the fray, and let's see what he has. And Burks, too, he's been a veteran backup. He's in the hunt, too. So, we don't have anybody established as, per se, an Eagle, but we've got guys to work with, and we're happy with the group so far.
To follow up on Bob's question, your response to that about the changes in the game over the 4 years. So how have you found that you have had to adapt to the limited schedule? And in fact, in here, the Eagles probably practice as few as any team, least amount maybe last year as any team in the NFL. How will you adapt to that?
Well, you got to make do with what you got, but I keep pushing for more.
Did you push for more this offseason before coming here?
I'll let Nick answer that for you.
You think players can take that the wrong way?
Take what?
Take the pushing and
Not, again, within reason. I'm not proposing we go 2-a-days and do, what is it, North Dallas, what was the thing in Dallas?
40.
Yeah, North Dallas 40. Yeah.
In 2022, that was sort of a hiatus where you got to dive in to study and catch up.
Yeah.
I mean, just study trends and things like that. When you have a system that everybody's trying to kind of use in their own system, so did you take time between this off season, between Miami to now? What are you trying to do in terms of taking a step ahead, and how much different do you think things can be with the players that you have here?
Well, I mean, I got to first learn these players. And, you know, I think the narrative you're painting that people are pulling stuff from our defense. They're not doing it verbatim, you know what I'm saying? Mostly. But, no, I've been super busy since I came here. Anytime you go somewhere and it's your first off season with a new staff, new players, adapting to everything, you know, you're super busy. And, yeah, I study film. I mean, I take a couple defenses every year and break them down around the league and, you know, see if I can learn something. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
And with the Eagles hadn't picked a cornerback in a long time, how much was your voice in that? And with a guy like Quignon, how does his skill set help you in what you can do with your secondary?
Yeah, he's obviously got good movement. He's got good size for a corner. He's going to have to adapt to the NFL game, covering NFL receivers, NFL schemes in the passing game. There's a lot to learn. And, but we think he's the right guy, you know, emotionally and mentally to do that. And hopefully he'll pay dividends quickly rather than later. But he's going to be one of the many competing.
Having worked with Sean Desai as long as you did, what was your perspective on the way that last year went for him here?
You know, I really don't know. Anytime it goes bad like it did, it's usually everybody has their fingerprints on it. You know, it's not just one thing or one person.
When it comes to that, you've had that Platt defender, Sam linebacker. You've had some success with that. Van Ginkel had a big year for you last year. Is that something you want, or is that something that I have this player and I kind of want to take advantage of this particular player?
His versatility you're talking about?
Well, his role. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, he obviously showed that I thought he could do it, and then he showed he could do it. So we used him that way. And then we got handcuffed through injuries. He had to play one position then. But yeah, anytime you have guys that are versatile, it helps. Helps a lot.
When you went about building the staff, the rest of the defensive staff, what was important to you?
To get good coaches. I mean, obviously some of these guys I've had some history with, but it really wasn't the history of knowing them, why they're here. I had firsthand knowledge that they're good coaches. So that was first and foremost. You know, Joe was here, Clint, you know, Bobby King, I didn't know from Adam till we hired him, and he's done a great job so far. So priority one was good coaches. Then if they did have familiarity with the scheme or me, that helped.
A lot of these guys you'll be their fourth defensive coordinator in in a couple years. A lot of these guys are going to have 3 position coaches. How much of a challenge is that to kind of start from scratch again for them? It
does add a level of challenge to it. Hopefully we'll get enough work between the off season and training camp to get through that. But there's no denying that continuity, if it's good continuity, is helpful.
What's the best way to maximize Jalen Carter in your defense?
Who?
Jalen Carter.
Well, I mean, I think he's talented enough that no matter what we do with him, we'll be maximizing him. He's got to get in great shape, which I think he's off to a great start here, and so we can play him a lot.
In terms of limiting explosive plays, where do you rank that in terms of priorities?
High.
Highest?
It's high.
What about getting after the quarterback? How big is that for you?
High.
Highest.
It's high.
How about not letting the other team score? Where's that kind of rank?
That's number one. That's the highest.
You asked about Jalen Carter. What about Jordan Davis? How do you?
Same thing. He's heading into his third year. I think he's off to a good start this offseason. I mean, I don't have anything to compare it to, not having been here his first 2 years. But I think he's working good. I think he's rounding into good shape. It's up to us to give him the opportunity and platform to get in good shape and then rely on him when he leaves here and, that dead time between the offseason and camp. Well, from what I've seen so far, very encouraging.
How much input did you have with Bryce Huff, and what do you like about him that you've seen in film and otherwise?
Yeah, Howie asked us to watch him, both myself and Wash, and, we liked him. And he's been a good pass rusher for the Jets, playing in a somewhat of a part-time role. Hopefully we can make him proficient enough to where he plays more, meaning his run play, and on the occasion or two that we might want to drop him.
Last year, you mentioned, and I know you weren't a part of it, but when the defense is trying week to week to try to solve things, and there's a lot of hands in trying to get it back on track, what from your experience, and I don't know if the Eagles ask this from you, where you can help build game plans week to week? What are your strengths there, and whenever things do turn around that you can find solutions each week? What goes into that from a defensive coordinator position?
Well, I mean, I think what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they weren't playing good. They had injuries, so there was a lot of moving parts. Is that what you're saying?
Finding solutions week to week.
Yeah. Basically, I mean, I'm not totally sure of your question, but when things aren't going good, you need to go back to basics. I'll tell the players early in camp that if we're struggling, don't expect me to magically scheme our way out of it during a game. We're going back to basics, and we're going to call the things that we've been practicing since day one, and we got to fight our way out of it. And if you don't have that foundation, and you're always grabbing for the perfect call, you'll be okay for a little bit, but eventually you're going to get gashed.
You said
We'll do a couple more,
dropping
please, couple more.
in the coverage on occasion.
What's that?
Dropping on the coverage on occasion for the edge rushers.
Mhm.
What's your view on how you want to use the edge rushers in coverage?
They will occasionally drop, yes.
I think your passion for baseball is pretty.
What's that?
Baseball is pretty well known, but just the Cliff Notes version. How do you, I'm a football coach, and not take your career for the baseball side of things?
Oh. I don't know. It's a good question. I had a great high school coach. When he retired, he was the second winningest coach in the state of Pennsylvania, Jack Henses, and played for him. And I kind of caught the bug from him for football. Because coaching in football has more of an impact on the game than baseball does in most other sports. There's no other sport where you huddle up. Now I know there's no huddles, but you're making a call every single time. So you have an important impact. And you play one game a week, so there's a lot of practice, a lot of teaching. I enjoy practice. I enjoy teaching. Coaching in football is different than baseball for sure. It's 160. I used to say before they went to 17 games, every one of our games was worth 10 in Major League Baseball. Because we had 16, they had 162. So when we lost 2 in a row, that was like losing 20 in a row in baseball. And, that kind of paints a good picture for people that don't realize that. It's just like with the Phillies here, he's letting Castellanos fight his way out of a slump. You can't do that here. And they wouldn't do that if they were in the playoffs either. They got 162 games.
We'll wrap it up with Bo, and then we got Kellen here.
I think people would look at you and Nick and think that you have kind of different personalities from the outside. How has it been working with him every day so far?
Good. No issue. I don't know why they would think that, but.
Great. All right.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, guys.